Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, November 17th. Let's hop right into it. We're probably on a short timer, as it were, since the last couple of streams have ended fairly abruptly after an hour or maybe two of streaming, because I've just been really sleepy due to insomnia. I suppose we are also starting late, so that is another factor. Plus, it's going to be fairly easy to jump into this stream. Dragoncraft, Havencraft, we'll stick with that. Because there's really not a lot to talk about in the accountability section. This is one of those accountability sections that I have to really report I basically have done nothing. After moving furniture, which I shouldn't have done, on Saturday, my back has just been in total pain and spasms. So I have been just trying to sleep it off and not really accomplishing anything. My fervent hope is it's not a case that this new let's just be honest, this new chair that I have is basically an old person's chair. It's a rocket chair that lifts you up and helps you get out of it and reclines and can lie flat. It's a very nice recliner, but yeah, it is designed for old people. My fervent hope is that it is not this chair that is making my back worse, and hopefully it would even be helping. But I'll just have to live with it regardless, because there's practically no way for me to move the chair with the mechanisms to have it lift up and recline and lie flat. It's incredibly heavy, and there's no way I could move it even with assistance. A minimum of 2 other people would have to do it, and I could basically do nothing to help them.
The eternal procession beckons.
So, yeah. There could be a scenario where I could slide it out of the way, but that's about it. I could slide it a few feet and put a different chair if I had to. I was attempting through OBS to use the window capture instead of the display capture, and that didn't work either. Neither of the systems work, and I'm gonna probably at some point look at all the OBS filters and see if there's something they could make a filter that would merge or selectively pick multiple displays or multiple window captures, because that's really what it needs to do. None of the matching features works well with Chrome as it is. It's just because Chrome changes its title, and having multiple windows open in Chrome, which is too convenient to not do, causes it unable to pick the right window, or any window at that point, it seems. Speaking of OBS, OBS is seemingly at this point finally going to court against Streamlabs OBS, which Streamlabs basically stole the open source projects of open broadcasting software and stole their trademark. Now, it's open source, so it's not like this is a claim that they stole the code. It's a claim that they've stolen the likeness and created name confusion and stolen the trademark of OBS. Had Streamlabs come out with a software just called Streamlabs broadcasting software, which Streamlabs BS is a bad name certainly, or Streamlabs client or Streamlabs streamer, any other word instead of OBS, which arguably maybe OBS is too short of a thing to deserve a trademark, even specifically in a subcategory of software that would be streaming software. But yeah, initialisms are pretty common in technology, so you get into a whole different argument at that point about whether initialisms should be trademarked or trademarkable.
The greater your sin, the crispier I make you.
But yeah. OBS says they, or is claiming that they've tried to work this out privately with Streamlabs OBS so that that Streamlabs wouldn't create that name confusion, and they claim Streamlabs has basically stonewalled them, and this is all very believable as an accusation. There definitely is name confusion there. Like, I definitely have seen people say, hey, I'm using Streamlabs OBS on the forums of OBS, and people just telling them, well, go away then, you're on the wrong forum. Which, yeah, I posted some feature requests on the Tableau forums, and like, in looking and trying to do some due diligence to make sure the features hadn't been requested before, saw that there was quite a lot of toxicity on that forum. a lot of just like one person saying something slightly offensive and then it turning into a flame war, as there's like SJW things, the master slave argument coming up, and it's like, alright, so somebody used the wrong phrase and wrong terminology, you don't need to dress them down when they're trying to request a feature. In a lot of ways, I think, while I finally, it kind of took me a while to say, yeah, there is probably better terminology versus master slave in IT that should be used, although there are some cases specifically where I don't think they have found the right terminology yet, and server client as replacements does not always make the same sense. I also would say that I think you're going to have to just wait for a whole generation to die out there, because that kind of terminology is just like historically trained in the minds of the older programmers, and they're not going to learn new things. People don't learn new things, frankly, after a certain age, and IT people are if worse than average, I think, in that case. And creating new drama, fighting over word policing is not really effective in the true desires or what should be focused on. I think most people these days would easily agree that slavery is wrong, even amongst the groups of people that use master and slave as terminology that in IT forums. So basically I'm asking for trouble, but whatever. Like, I'm going to enter a dark, shady alley as far as a hostile forum, and do my very best to not engage. Like,
toast to friendship.
I know already I've gotten a very generic, just cookie cutter response from some other member who is probably just looking for likes and karma, as it were, in the forum, giving me a generic customer service response as if I have a problem that he thinks he's solving, or they think they're solving, when I'm asking for a feature request after doing a decent amount of research to know that, at least enough research to know that the cookie cutter response he's giving me is not anywhere close to being a actual answer to the feature. Basically, it's a response that it is this way and it is this way, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's that way, but I don't want to engage with that comment, because that's where these any forum post frankly boils down into these ridiculous arguments. Like, there's no point in starting a forum thread and then having it go 40 comments deep when only the first or second comment are actually about the topic, and the next 38 comments are just arguments about something completely differently. And that is inherently the problem with forums in general, is that if you are like searching a forum and they're filtered by most active, what they call hot most of the time, or most number of posts, it's almost never a case that the most number of posts are because there is a deep, thoughtful, constructive discussion. It's because it's boiled down into an argument and people just fighting amongst each other. And you don't see that if they're not fighting for each other, against each other, then they're memeing. You see that on Reddit definitely too. What are the top Reddit subreddits, and what are the top threads on Reddit? It's always either people just memeing or arguing. And the Reddit system is at least slightly better than most, because it has the thumbs up, thumbs down system to curate a little bit better, which is another argument, an example against getting rid of a dislike count on YouTube. But yeah, even at that, we have never, as a human species, found a good system, and we are still, I guess, looking for a good system where conversation actually goes well. Even like structured debate, I think, is really fallen apart. Arguably even peer-reviewed journals have not elevated the discourse as well as they should. Yeah, honestly, there is a decent argument against no discussion ever. And that's why I imagine in schools, the more totalitarian teachers do just demand silence so often, is it's easier just to seek out no expansion of human knowledge through conversation than to fight and avoid or deal with conflict.
You were done for. I'll make the you could use some shine yourself.
So, but yeah, the right way to deal with that in any forum, though, is just ignore things that are not useful. That's what I basically do on YouTube. Things I get constant spam or quotes. Very rarely do I get hate or troll posts. And honestly, most of the hate or troll posts I've seen, I have gotten over the career of my YouTube channel, have something constructive or a thread of truth in them, so it is valid feedback, even if it's negative feedback. There may have been 1 or 2 times where somebody just put a straight up like FU type post where there was no actual criticism, and even in those 1 or 2 times I may have just been somewhat emotional and deleted those comments, but I definitely haven't done it more than a couple times. And even at that, doing it a couple times is probably is almost certainly a couple times too many. Guess you do this. And then you do this. Yeah, so do we have anything else that I need to talk about? No, let's hop into the news. We desperately need to get all of the games cleaned up, because there's I don't want to have games left over on Friday to then have more games left over on Monday. Here we have a game on Steam called Being Left the F Alone Simulator, which definitely has that CGA style graphics and looks like a Sierra game. The problem here certainly is this isn't a Sierra game. And I don't really think there'd be a reason why I'd want to play a Sierra game made in the modern time. $4.99 English only. Like I barely, even for historical reasons, covered like the King's Quest series, and just because these text parser games, although this one seems like this might be more of a point and click than the original Sierra games that were actually more text parsing. They're just like not really written well. I know people have nostalgia for them, but they really aren't. They aren't designed well as a concept and as a video game. It's far too easy to make mistakes and lose permanently. You can easily not pick up an item in most Sierra games at the beginning of the game, and that ruins your entire chances of winning hours later.
My thunderbolts shall guide you, if they don't kill you first.
Okay. I'll go ahead and just hit that. Hold on a turn. So yeah, I have to say no to that game. Halo Infinite Season 1 has been extended to May 2022. I think we probably had already talked about that, but whatever. Walmart has announced its Black Friday gaming deals, including a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series plans. Walmart also has that Walmart Plus plan, I believe. No, that's Best Buy. Nope. Walmart also has a Walmart Plus plan, so which is $12.95 a year to get a 4-hour head start. So Best Buy and Walmart, I think, both have plans like this. PS5 console for $500 is about the regular price, and I wouldn't be surprised if all these are out of sale online, or definitely out of sale in person very quickly. Not really seeing too much of a deal. Getting the Nintendo Switch with Mario Kart 8 and a 3-month of the online subscription for $2.99 is not terrible, but you are sacrificing the ability to get the OLED version instead, which arguably I could see a scenario where you can't get the OLED version instead anyways.
The real battle begins.
Let's see. As far as video games, for $14, let's see. Since you're getting physical copies of these, $14 for these games don't look terrible, but it's not like it's not like they're worth your life. And then video games for $20, there's a long list here. Nothing really super surprising. In a weird way, $20 for Paw Patrol the movie Adventure City Calls is probably your best deal there, because these kids games tend to be the ones that are super overpriced and never go on sale, because there's just kind of a constant constant demand for them. Resident Evil Village for $20 isn't terrible. There's DLC certainly that probably you're not getting there. $25 for Deathloop is not probably worth it even then. Guardians of the Galaxy for $25 isn't terrible. Again though, if these are physical versions or digital versions, or online orders of physical versions, there's a high chance these things will sell out. It's kind of funny, all the FIFA things are $26 instead of $25. Walmart failed to negotiate them down, I suppose.
I'll get it right this time.
Let's see if this works.
Let us conclude. Let him go!
Okay.
Why is this so hard?
My loyalty
Your
is
queen
ironclad.
commands you. So this is freedom. You're in good hands.
My armor has been pierced.
$35 at that point. You're barely getting deals. Getting Guardians of the Galaxies for the later gen games at $35 versus $25 for the last gen of consoles, which I assume it's not a free upgrade if you got the last gen, the PS5. Well, this is weird. This is PS5 version and Xbox Series X for $25, and then Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxies is also listed here as $35. So this list is wrong somewhere here. Like, is it $25 or is it $35, or is the $35 one the Ultimate Edition? $35 for Zelda. I mean, or Splatoon 2. Some of these Nintendo Switch games maybe would never go on discount anyway, so you might have a decent deal. If anything, more of these sales, most of the sales really highlight to me a limiting factor of
Put your back into it, Babylon.
of just what is really available in general.
You were done for.
Kaboom! No
Now
handiwork
you've
needed.
done it.
Woo!
A fitting end. Why
Like-
is this so
At
hard?
your service.
So this is freedom.
It kinda doesn't matter.
You wouldn't.
Ah!
Well, that wouldn't help me. yeah, it kind of doesn't matter how much things are on sale when there's not a lot of selection in general. There's just not been a ton of games that have come out this year. So a lot of these games I imagine people already have. The highest price tag here at $39 really feels like barely even a sale. And honestly, Black Friday as a concept has just kind of died. I think it is also worth mentioning that while I have not looked into it too much, there is a lot of talk of the idea of a great resignation, a great walkout, a great strike happening on Black Friday and around Black Friday. And so if you are interested in that and research that, I think you would maybe not want to cross the picket line, as it were, digitally by buying things during Black Friday. I think there is definitely an argument, even on just an individual perspective and angle, that this is the perfect time to not buy anything on Black Friday. Black Friday is kind of a dead concept in general as a point when sales and deals actually happen, and you're much better off following something like slickdeals.net, which I follow 24/7, 365 basically. Like I just saw yesterday, there was a pretty great deal where you can get a pack of cards for 88 cents instead of $5 is what they usually cost. So just a standard playing card deck. Having a spare one of that for less than $1 as a stocking stuffer is a great idea. And a deck of cards will certainly last you a good long while, maybe a quarter of your lifetime. But yeah, following Slick Deals year round and finding the real deals, the deep discounts. There was also like an Eddie Bauer jacket that was half off, like a name brand clothing half off for something that is coming out fairly new. But yeah, that is the much better way. Not only because it gets you actual deals and good deals, it also breaks up your spending, which is the better way to do it. People habitually have been trained to save up all of their money until Black Friday, until the last part of the year, then spend all of their money because of Christmas, which is a sad statement on the celebration on the birth of Jesus Christ, instead of giving gifts more consistently over the year, and helping and spending things more evenly per year, and having your budget show and feel like it's show its true nature. A lot of people, I think, trick themselves into thinking they're making a lot more money than they actually are over the course of the year because they're saving up for the holidays.
The greater your sin, the crispier I make you.
If only I could attack. If only I had Storm.
You wouldn't. You're in good hands.
But yeah, as far as video game sales, I don't think I've seen any so far, and I don't expect to see any. You also have the chip shortage that, while that's not going to affect the disc pressing so much, it is going to affect consoles. So particularly if you don't have a console right now and you can't get like a used Xbox One or used PlayStation 4, I would just say now would be a terrible time to get into console gaming. And not even a great time to get into PC gaming either, in all fairness. If it's not going to be particularly easy to get a PC that can play games or play most modern games. If you can get an old cheap PC, you can probably play a lot of old games without any problem. Although I think there is sadly a category of laptops that are much closer to things like Chromebooks being sold even new today that are fairly terrible at playing even old games. The whole Intel integrated graphics type laptops and computers are examples of that. Moving on with the news, Video Games Chronicles, that's what we're looking at right now, says EA has awkwardly marked Skate 2's Xbox backwards compatibility return by reminding people it's shutting down the servers. The classic title was added to backwards compatibility this week, and it's turning off the servers soon. On December 10th, 2021. Which that seems incredibly stupid. And if anything, it probably is a case where the negotiations between Microsoft and EA went pretty poorly. And since Microsoft is saying we're done here, we can't negotiate or bring anything else back as far as backwards compatibility. I think technically they probably, and by technically I mean, I think computer programming wise they probably could bring back all the remaining not backward compatible games. It's just licensing and negotiation. And so I would imagine that any negotiations that were left were given either a drop dead date, as it's called, where they either said let's do this contract by this date or let's just cancel it. And I bet there were several negotiations that just canceled it, and EA said, well, alright, let's just do it at this level. And the further negotiations that were still pending, or that they were still trying to have, I imagine, to say, could you please not shut down the servers, just those meetings got canceled. And at the end of the day, this doesn't make Microsoft look bad, it just makes EA look bad, so Microsoft probably doesn't even particularly care so much. It is kind of ridiculous though, like, regardless of how bad the servers may have been set up for previous games, it's going to be fairly trivial to maintain those servers. Like, it can get expensive certainly to run servers, but you could definitely take an image of an old server and then run it on a virtualized new server, and it would just be a drop in the bucket, because your new servers would also be handling the traffic for your newer games. It really is a case, I would have to assume, of accountants just trying to pinch pennies, or executives just trying to throw their weight around. Like, it is frankly ridiculous that anything on the internet ever gets shut down at all, considering there's the internet, like, way back machine, the Internet Archives are capable of archiving a significant portion of the internet themselves. And you could easily have a stripped down version of the servers if you were trying to save space, but I don't know if it's even worth trying for that.
Smiles are the best medicine.
Speaking of an internet website, apparently a fairly popular website called like the Monster Girl, I think it's called the Monster Girl Encyclopedia or something, some kind of like fandom website where they draw lewd anime girls, anime monster girls, is being shut down. It's being categorized as more of the porn apocalypse, in which more and more websites are not allowing adult content, which has been happening increasingly over the past couple years, whereas a significant amount of that was PayPal and credit card processors refusing to do business with anybody that had any adult content on their websites at all. So you're having this push of censorship from a money processing thing. That's one of the things that cryptocurrency was supposed to potentially stop, is that to not allow a payment processor to have total control over your business, your website. But if anything, Bitcoin hasn't become prevalent enough to even work in that factor.
My blade is autumn. I am the
But yeah, I imagine websites are getting shut down left and right that I don't hear about. Let's return to video game news though. Halo themed content is returning to Sea of Thieves for a limited time. The Spartan set was only made available for a brief time in 2019. It was available for like a week. Yeah, from June 15th to June 20th. And now that Halo's back, they're re-releasing it as, once again, kind of an example of releasing things in too short of a period and being ridiculous. It would have made at least some sense to have Halo themed games, Halo themed armor in Sea of Thieves come out every time you wanted a big push on Halo. So when Halo Infinite, or I think that's the latest Halo game, when it was announced, it should have come out again. When it was delayed, they should have released it again. Like anytime they said anything about Halo, it would have made a lot of sense to just bring it out for another week, just to be nice. I mean, that kind of content is basically free. It's just advertising content. Video Games Chronicle says new Xbox Game Pass titles for console, PC, and cloud have been dated. Which that's going to mean a lot more now as far as Xbox Cloud Gaming, because they have brought cloud gaming finally to the consoles, which I thought they were already in the consoles. So there are several games here coming out for November. Let's see. Mortal Shell, not probably getting enough coverage as it deserves. I don't think Evil Genius 2 actually deserves that much. My friend Pedro, I think, might be worth a look. These other games I don't particularly remember or recall. Let's see. Video Game Chronicle says Forza Horizon 5's language filter is being, quote, fixed. I mean, I don't know why you have to quote fix there. I guess there is some weirdness in the English language in that fixed has two somewhat different meanings. If I fix a screw to a wall, I'm not correcting the screw in its placement in the wall. I am attaching the screw to the wall in such a way that it won't move or change. Whereas if I fix a bad recipe, I'm changing the recipe so that it works differently or cooks differently. But yeah, there's no reason to quote that. Regardless, it had been flagging some names as inappropriate. Osama, which apparently is a senior game designer. Osama Dorias is a senior game director at Warner Brothers Games Montreal. Nazi Fortress. Yeah. I could almost see the Osama. I don't get the Nazi Fortress one at all. Like, at a certain point, you literally just have a list of Arabic names there. And honestly, how much damage are you gonna do if you, like, I think the language filters seemingly in this picture only allowing you to put custom license plates, so you couldn't even get Osama bin Laden as a title on the license plate, so it's not enough spots. But let's say you did get all of Osama bin Laden on the back of your car. That's just a edgelord joke at that point. Who cares? Like, yeah. And in all fairness, like, these filters are probably something that they try to use in every game, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of a fairly copy-paste thing. I once did briefly look at a project as far as bad language filtering, and yeah, it is very easy to accidentally filter out just ridiculous amounts of words and make it near impossible to have anything at all allowed. And at a certain point, I just think it kind of doesn't matter. The ESRB doesn't rate online interactions or content. So if there was an online thing where you went on someone else's game and saw their license plate said ASS, that the ESRB wouldn't do anything about that anyways. And I think the bare minimum is all you really should have in these cases. Just get the English Western bad words filtered, the like 7 dirty words you can't say on television, filter those, filter variants of those, and you're probably good. If somebody is being creative enough to, say, use a word like Sambo, which I'm not sure very many people would even know or is an insult word. I'd say about half of people, depending how old they are, would know that's an insult word. You might as well just let that slide
Be gone.
and not worry about it.
Oh, this thing's more vicious than a nine-headed
You could
rattler.
frankly just wait until somebody complained and then say, "Oh, sorry about that. We'll add that to our filter list now." but all people who had it previously will, well, won't be forced to change their name. Will be grandfathered in. That would be the laziest and easiest way to deal with that kind of problem.
This is how you do fireworks.
I have done the gods' bidding.
Okay. Well, then I guess we don't want to evolve. Yeah, I think specifically when you're banning, if you're banning just Arabic names, you've gone too far anyways in a filter. As much as I'm trying to stay within a pro free speech stance.
Damn rain.
Stop! I envy you.
I think there is a yeah, I want to try my very best to stay within a pro free speech stance, and the more I think about it, it is really ridiculous to ban names. It is coming from a misguided kind of bad place mentally, because you are literally saying Middle Eastern's names are offensive, even if it was like names of actual terrorists. And arguably maybe these filter lists were originally created, wherever they got that list of filters, maybe they were originally created by somebody in the Middle East. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if several of the countries that are Muslim in the Middle East ban the use of like Osama bin Laden as as a name or being mentioned. I also wouldn't be surprised if perhaps you have some heavily anti-Islamic organizations, like let's just say Jerusalem as an example, that would ban Middle Eastern Arabic names, or make a block list saying they're offensive. So yeah, but at the core of it, the more you think about it, that seems totally that seems totally unacceptable. Yeah, and that also nearly slid right by me, and I didn't even think of that when I first saw that article. It's just like, oh yeah, you're banning names. You're not banning insult words. You're banning names. That gets too close. That is too close to the Chinese banning the Winnie the Pooh situation, for anybody's comfort, or for my comfort by far. Like, I had a viewer who is named Mahmood, and one of my fans was, for a while there, was chatting quite a bit, and Mahmood on the chat, because I just glanced at it, I thought his name was Muhammad, and I was just misreading it the first a couple times, and he corrected me and seemed to forgive me for making such a like stupid Westerner mistake. But yeah, it would have been incredibly rude and wrong of me if I had just seen his name as Mahmoud or Muhammad by misreading it and then immediately banned him from chat, which I don't think I've ever banned anybody from chat at all. Maybe one person over the course of 5+ years. Not that I've had a ton of people in the chat over that time anyways. And if I did ban one person, it was probably because they were just spamming total obscenity nonsense. Like I really haven't even had to show the rules. Like for a brief time I had some rules up for the chat, but I removed them in the last time I did a major overhaul of my interface, and just because it's not even that necessary. Moving on. Sorry, I don't want to have these awkward pauses since we're trying to burn through the news. The Video Game Awards has their 2021 nominees. Their website kind of sucks. You look at this and you have it taking up quite a lot of space in the bottom corner. You have a hovering top banner that is covering up and clipping the top of the background, spinning background, animated background. This is like stuff that would not be acceptable in making web pages decades previous. They're really trying to overcompensate for the fact that they have nothing on this specific page. Then you click view categories, and then it brings up a pretty awful way to display each category, and there's just like no art here. Clearly they needed somebody better. You have like a close button here and the return to site button here. So at some point they got feedback that people couldn't even navigate their way back. But anybody that dumb that can't just click the back button really shouldn't be voting for a Game of the Year event anyways.
The greater your sin, the crispier I make you.
And because this website is this bad, like, I'll click on Game of the Year, but that's about it. Also, take note that the website is literally jumping from black background to now blue background. It was blue background before. And as far as categories, it seems like they've now made it so you can just click next category. It's like every individual page on this website was made by a different person. There's severe limitations here as far as what can win, so wouldn't be surprised if It Takes Two gets more rewards than you would expect. I wouldn't be surprised if Returnal gets more rewards and Deathloop gets more rewards than they deserve. I wouldn't be surprised if Psychonauts is just a complete success. I wouldn't be surprised if Ratchet and Clank is a complete success. There's arguably not even that many games that came out this year, but still I think there's a high factor of video game journalists just still being lazy, and instead of taking this year to try harder to play more games, they may very well have taken this year to just complain and do nothing. So I wouldn't really be surprised if
You're in good hands.
we have
You're in good hands.
a, like, if we have a lot of games that are undeserving getting rewarded. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 is even nominated for Best Score in Music seems ridiculous. Whereas I bet very few people even played Nier Replicant, and so it won't win. Typically, these Western award seasons don't ever give due diligence to Japanese games. Like, it has to be a fairly prominent Kojima-like game for most Western video game journalists to give it any attention at all. And Kojima basically is smoozing and trying to be a Westerner. In a lot of ways, Kojima's content and the type of games like the Metal Gear Solid games have barely had a twinge of Japanese sentimentality into them, whilst mostly telling a story or trying to tell a Western military story. Like the Metal Gear series, Metal Gear Solid stories in particular, aren't really your traditional Eastern or Japanese experiences. Let's see, I guess we can go through all of these. Best audio design, like best performance. I wouldn't even dare to possibly try and guess on that. Then you have games for impact, where I suspect Life is Strange True Colors would win that. Maybe Boyfriend Dungeon, because they just want to support this game that they hyped up. Whereas these other three games I've never even heard of. So that probably goes to show that there's not a lot of change happening if the games are not even relevant. And then I could see Fortnite being snubbed for best ongoing, or Fortnite being rewarded for best ongoing, depending on whether the mainstream video game industry wants to support Epic or not, where I could see Genshin Impact being snubbed as, at the very least, it being the most impactful thing. Like, the irony here is there's far too high of a chance of Call of Duty Warzone or Apex Legends winning there.
I pray that you will be freed
There we
from
got a
suffering.
quick disconnect. Now got us one victory, and that leaves us now with just trying to get 2 more victories with Havencraft, and then we could try and make progress from winning more matches for card packs. Best Indie basically means nothing, and has kind of meant nothing for a while now, because indie as a concept has become extremely nebulous, and has been for a while now. It would be better, frankly, for people to just about adopt the general concept of single A, double A, triple A, like I use it, in the sense where these are games that we feel fall into a category of single A games, which are targeting the smallest subsect of mainstream gamers, whereas double A games are targeting the second smallest section of mainstream gamers, and or of gamers in general, probably not mainstream. and then AAA is targeting the largest subsect. So, like when you see like a Call of Duty game or Halo, for instance, it is going for the largest group of gamers, whereas Bayonetta is going more for the second largest group of gamers, which are more niche. Most people would play Bayonetta, but I would expect that there are definitely a lot of people that wouldn't. And then when you look at something like Inscription, for instance, which is a weird subversive meta game, that is where you're getting into kind of something closer to a cult classic or cult favorite niche audience. And that's where I would put something like Inscription as a single A game, or 12 Minutes in particular has, I think, probably a very small audience, particularly for people that actually play it. But yeah, even in its selling and advertising, it would be very easy to categorize this as far as just like these are games that had an advertising budget of less than $1 million, less than $10 million, and then over $10 million for AAA games. Like Kenna Bridge of Spirits, arguably, I would put as a AA game and not a single A game, whereas these other games I would put as a single A game. And it's not really a testament to quality or amount of content, it's a testament to just how I would break up the interests of gamers in general. Here we have a best mobile game category presented by Verizon, which I don't know why Verizon and AT&T bothered to advertise at all, considering how they're just kind of universally hated. You have a game here called Fantasian, I've never even heard of. League of Legends Wild Rift, which I don't think I've heard of. Marvel Future Revolution, which I haven't heard of, and Pokemon Unite. And so I would think the only real contenders here are Pokemon Unite and Genshin Impact. Best community supported game. I don't even know what that means as far as a category. Is that games that just actually support their community? Do you deserve an award for doing the bare minimum in that case? I mean, you really have to ask yourself that, because that does seem very much like you're rewarding for doing the bare minimum. We'll go ahead and draw a card, and we'll go ahead and do that. Let's see, next you have Innovation and Accessibility, presented by Chevrolet. At the very least, I will applaud the Video Game Awards for getting sponsors that are not directly involved with video games. Verizon and Chevrolet, for instance, are much better than, say, Nintendo and Sony, or Sega, some direct developer of video games. So, one of these amulets probably yeah, the sphere relic is probably the one I should have destroyed. Oops. Alright, well, I'll keep that in mind.
You crossed the line.
The time for perennial prayer has come.
You're done for.
Let's see if we can actually win here.
I mustn't give in.
As far as the game being accessible, like, I feel like there's very little you can do to add accessibility on top of what is just should be required. At a certain point, there, my back just spasmed. Sorry about that. We have Summer on the chat saying hello. Hello, Summer.
The real battle begins.
Yeah, at certain points, having ramps and elevators in a building is not, has long since stopped being something that people were being applauded for and just become something that is legally required. I think you run into that same scenario with accessibility in video games at this point, where almost every game should have subtitles if it has any spoken text at all. No, not almost every game. I can't think of a single scenario where a game with spoken text shouldn't have subtitles. I think if you can afford voice acting, you're going to have subtitles because you're going to pay for a script anyways, and it's very easy to just copy the script into a subtitle file and put the subtitle code in your program. Arguably, there's been no adoption at all in games as far as audio description subtitles or closed captions that tell you what's happening. Minecraft has added something to that level, but not as much as I would have really liked. 3 damage would not do enough. I want to, I guess, do this one and this one. Do I want to evolve here? Audio description for the blind versus just audio description. Yeah, there really is no difference between audio description for the blind versus audio description for someone else. So that is probably why games have not really done audio descriptions, is because there is no need, or it'd be very hard to make your game accessible to the blind. Let's see. I don't think any of those actually is going to help me. Yeah. Summer also says have a good stream. Thank you, Summer. Yeah, I really don't know what more one can do potentially. This guy just healed himself. I think I'm doomed at this point.
This is how you do fireworks.
If you can do this much.
Kaboom! No handiwork needed.
I can do.
But I can't attack this guy to reduce his damage or anything along that lines. Best thing I can do is this. Forward. And then, like, colorblind modes should probably be considered and added to most games, or every game. Like, I keep saying most, but it's pretty much every game should consider colorblind mode. Almost all games fail to put in bigger text mode or high visibility modes. So I would say
Over to the gods.
there probably is a need for an innovation in accessibility, but it's not really getting fulfilled. I can't mention at all what Far Cry 6 or any of these other games would have done to add to accessibility, other than Forza Horizon 5 had the sign language interpreter added to cutscenes, which in my opinion is incredibly stupid and pointless because they already had subtitles, and I heavily suspect the reason they added the sign language interpreter, other than just being SJW woke, is because they maybe wanted to win this award. But yeah, these other games, no clue what they even have in them. And the website is not really adding anything to that as far as explaining why you would even consider it. Let's see, best AR VR. I still think that for the most part, AR and VR is garbage. Resident Evil 4, I think, maybe deserves to win that since they rebuilt their game in VR, but honestly, I don't know how much applaud anybody really deserves for once again selling the same thing that they have sold to people multiple times over. Let's see, what else? Oh, they have like then best action games, and they're just gonna get into general categories here. Best action adventure games, which they really need to get rid of the action part there and just call them adventure games, and then call role-playing adventure games RPGs, just role-playing. I heard someone describe Shin Megami Tensei 5 as the Persona without the relationship stuff, and it is seemingly to not too far from being a Pokemon game, basically, where you're collecting things. It's just in the turn here. So, but the problem with Shin Megami Tensei 5, if it was going to be a Pokemon game, is that you're collecting adult demons instead of cute little Pokemon. And they're not adult humanoid looking, but a lot of them are, and a lot of them are in lewd outfits, so it does definitely put you in a different type of game for a different audience.
I completed my task.
Yeah, there's basically no way to win here other than to hope he runs out of cards. Which, if I can just keep on staying alive for 10 more card draws, that would be something interesting, but I don't think that really happens. If anything, I think he's probably just toying with me.
Spear void.
Let's see, best fighting game. Arguably Melty Blood might Deserve to Win or Guilty Gear or even Demon Slayer. I wouldn't be surprised if Virtua Fighter and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl wins it, just so they can exclude Eastern games that they never covered. Best family games, you get into a weird situation with It Takes Two. I don't know if that really is a family game since it's covering the idea of divorce. Even if they magically get back together at the end, which is not even a realistic thing. Whereas, I'm not even sure Mario Party Superstars is, I guess it's a family game. Is Pokemon Snap really a family game now, or is it a kid's game? Can families play the new Pokemon Snap? Or is it more single player or maybe co-op 2-player? Which, at a certain point, if co-op 2-player games are now family games, that seems ridiculous. Same is true for Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, is how much of that really is multiple players, or is it just 2-player co-op? WarioWare Get Together, also same situation. I'm not sure there really is a case there to say.
How empty it all is.
Your shining faith will carry you.
What a dim light.
If this guy couldn't attack,
Design is meaningless.
that would be different. Let's see. Best Sim strategy game. Age of Empires has a good chance of winning that. Inscription, maybe, but I think Microsoft Flight Simulator probably will win that. Like, it is a very pretty game, so definitely could see
How could you not
the
understand?
reasoning behind. Like,
You're in good hands. No!
if I keep drawing cards, though I'm gonna run out of cards as fast as he is. This is gonna come straight down to the line. Then they have best sports and racing games, which I don't care about sports and racing games, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hot Wheels Unleashed manages to win it. And this might be the mile marker at which point Hot Wheels Unleashed starts putting actual microtransactions in the game, is after they get all the Game of the Year awards.
Cross the line.
So probably closer to Christmas and the end of the year would be, or somewhere in January would be when I would assume they would start seeking out
This is where
that
I
idea.
truly shine. No!
Like, I really can't play anything. If I play this, it's bad. If I play the other thing, it's bad. Let's see. Next category, best multiplayer. They've got the images larger in this case for some reason. Again, the website just pretty terrible. Monster Hunter Rise has a decent argument to be considered. It Takes Two, should that be considered a multiplayer since it's just a 2-player multiplayer? I mean, seems like they are bending over backwards to give something to It Takes Two. If anything, I think It Takes Two as a game should be punished for being designed to be playable only when you have 2 people. Let's see. We gotta do something.
Stop!
Yeah, I guess if we can just get him to draw 3 cards, I can win.
Game, go away! You're done for.
When this guy evolves, nothing changes. Yeah, he's down to 1 card. I think we've got it.
My thunderbolts shall guide you, if they don't kill you first.
So if he can't win somehow doing 3 damage to me with 9 cards,
The gods have favored me twice. The real battle begins. Only 1 blessing? You poor thing. Now
but
you've
obviously
done it.
he could do that.
I envy you.
So he just took it down to the line just to waste my time, I suppose. I feel like he could have won a lot earlier than that, and I don't see a value in dragging it out. This Shadowverse does not benefit you at all or reward you at all for playing longer. You don't get more experience, you don't get more of a reward. Next category they have is Content Creator
Is
of the
fight
year,
and despair
which
all you know? guess
I
you're
know
looking for a
Dream,
fight.
and I don't recognize any of these other people, although this guy's face maybe looks a little familiar, although frankly this guy's face and this guy's face isn't even that different. This girl maybe I've seen once. I don't think I've ever seen this guy. Which, if anything, I think that's probably a good thing that I am so ignorant of other content creators. It stops me from subconsciously copying other content creators. Plus, frankly, other content creators are just generally doing something very different than what I do. They're not doing real criticism or review in most cases, and they're definitely trying to be a lot more of a personality and a celebrity. And so the best content creator of the year, by my definition, is going to be a very different definition than what I imagine the Video Game Awards people are going to award it to. And I bet it probably secretly kills everybody who is a mainstream video game journalist who votes at the Video Games Awards, which they are just the mainstream video game journalists that are voting for the awards. It probably secretly kills them to have to give any due or any applause to content creators in general, because they are eating their lunch. Content creators are. And yeah, there's way more people watching people like Dream, I'm sure, than watching Giant Bomb at this level. Which Giant Bomb is now going to put edited, more YouTube friendly versions of quick looks, not in the sense that they're edited for content, but edited in the sense for time, because they I think accurately believe that YouTube hates long form content, which definitely explains why my YouTube channel doesn't really succeed too well as super long form content, extremely long form content. Next category would be Best Debut Indie, which I don't think Sable deserves to even be on this list for as buggy as that was. And arguably, The Forgotten City doesn't deserve to be considered a debut indie this year, considering how it was the Forgotten City was originally a Skyrim mod from several years previous, and so it's not really debuting. But, you know.
What a dim light.
Again, you run into the problem of debut indie when it should just be best debut, but I bet they probably have another category for best debut in general, or at least some years they think about having a
Smiles are the
best debut
medicine.
secondary category.
Unbelievable! You're done for.
Stay away from me.
Here we have a category, most anticipated game, and this time it's presented by Prime Gaming, which that really spits in the face of the compliment I gave Game Awards before in not having sponsors that were directly involved in video games. Amazon, parent company of Prime Gaming, I don't even think it's a actual legal subsidiary. It's probably just a division.
You've no idea how pitiful and wretched I feel.
Amazon literally
Feel free to
has an engine they sell for video game programming. They have a publishing division. It's completely unethical to take them on as a sponsor in my book. So I withdraw and retract my compliment for the Games Awards, as they have gotten in bed with a sponsor they should have not done. With most anticipated game, I mean, do you really deserve an award for building up hype on a game? I kind of don't think you do. I think, if anything, that should be ignored or punished, not rewarded. Let's see.
all the fluffy hugs.
Let's see. Next category we have is Best Esports Game, which I don't follow esports, so I have no idea. I would assume it's probably going to be CSGO for arguably several years in a row, although maybe there's some trouble happening around CSGO also. I've heard some stories of Valve not really supporting the modders in CSGO. And then my second guess would be it would be either Dota or League of Legends. I severely doubt it's going to be Valorant, which I barely heard anything about, or Call of Duty. Best esports athlete, no clue. I have no idea and don't really care. Best esports team, exact same thing I just said, no clue, don't care. The best esports coach, same thing. Yeah, they really are trying to expand the idea of esports, but yeah, the hype and the concept that esports was going to be the next big thing, I think at this level has completely died out, for a good reason.
A horizon gives me inspiration.
That should cause that to evolve.
Unbelievable!
There you go.
Understand now.
And so that's all the categories and nominees for the Video Game Awards. We spent too much time covering that, but yeah. Video Games Chronicles recontextualizes, saying Deathloop leads the number of nominations, which definitely sets for a bad list. We could have gone through the list this way, but that would have been even worse. Like, arguably, Video Games Chronicles doing a worse job than the website. And Activision Blizzard just keeps getting worse and worse press. reports from the Wall Street Journal now are saying that Bobby Kotick knew about the misconduct and apparently made a death threat that could have been a joke, could have not been a joke. We're going to have to just take it seriously and assume it was a serious thing, as much as any death threat is serious that when made by a video game CEO. And this very arguably, now they say the Wall Street Journal, is it specifically the one guy at Wall Street Journal? It seems like the activist group / attempts to make a union, I don't think they've actually tried to form a union yet, is now pushing for the nothing less than the complete removal of Bobby Kotick as CEO. He still would have stock options and voting options, and there's very little one can do to take the stock options or voting shares away from someone. Yeah, arguably it would be probably better for society if there was a legal way to strip people of their voting options and their property, but that gets incredibly dangerous very quickly. It would be used against poor people who can't afford the lawyers to defend themselves far more often than it would be used to punish Bobby Kotick. Now, if I can, for a brief moment, put on a tinfoil hat and propose a conspiracy here. If you have just been actively trying to get rid of Bobby Kotick because you're an investor or investor group that may even have like direct ties to Wall Street Journal or influence, if you've been trying for years to get rid of Bobby Kotick, who's been known as one of the most overpaid CEOs in the United States overall, not just in the video game industry, just overall, maybe you do just keep on pushing lies and propaganda. Like, it's hard to believe that any claim against Activision Blizzard is anything short of 100% accurate. But there is definitely this scenario, and it is kind of a fantasy scenario where, yeah, if people were rich enough and powerful enough, and if they were willing to just keep on lying over and over again, and when one lie doesn't stick, that when the previous Activision Blizzard accusations have happened, but people really haven't reacted, the general public still doesn't care and won't care that much, that the fandom of Activision Blizzard of the past have a significant portion of them, including myself, have stopped really supporting or playing Activision Blizzard games for one reason or another. But at a certain point, you're not going to get any more groundswell. You're not going to get people that don't play video games to care about this video game story, really, regardless of what happens. So if you've lost momentum there, maybe you do just, in the fantasy scenario, just make up more lies, and you just keep pushing it. Like, we definitely saw that, and have seen that in politics, whereas when all of the terrible things that most politicians have done, and it's fairly obvious they have done, when those don't stick, when those don't stop people from getting elected, you do start to see the more fringe groups of people propagating things. We could go back to Obama is a great example. It's happened both Republican and Democratic sides quite a bit, but yeah. When Obama was voted in as president after a whole lot of mudslinging slander on him, it didn't stop. It increased, and now generally people that hated Obama or still hate Obama were calling him like a communist, a secret Satanist, pedophile, actually believing he might be a lizard person, not human. Obama's wife secretly being transgendered. Let's see what else. Running a pedophile ring. Some of the accusations certainly are true. To any president, so he was a killer, as much as any president was a killer, and authorized a lot of killing of people. And almost every president, I'm sure, is violating the Geneva Convention and causing war crimes by probably targeting civilians or using chemical weapons or something like that are supposed to be illegal. But yeah, it just gets more and more extreme. And while I don't disbelieve what's being said, that he made a death threat, I kind of wonder if we're not dangerously getting close to a point where any accusation at all is going to just be thrown out and believable, because if 90% of it's true, why not throw in another 10%? Why not just keep pushing it? And that definitely is what I feel like is attempting to be done in the Ubisoft case compared to the Activision Blizzard case. Either that, or it's just a situation where Ubisoft has done an incredibly better job at PR than Activision Blizzard has. Because it definitely feels like, from my perspective, and this may just be a case where I was propagandized very well in the Ubisoft case, and there was very bad PR or propaganda in the Activision Blizzard case on behalf of the companies in both instances. So, yeah, when I hear stories about the Ubisoft situation and accusation, it really does seem like it is all coming down to one incident that was basically actually handled appropriately, in my opinion, in Ubisoft's corporate structure, and then basically an IT group of employees refusing to do their job because they were outraged that something that was handled happened anyways, and that they are just basically using it as an excuse to try and negotiate or strengthen their union position. And in the Ubisoft case, it feels like it is specifically two newspapers that work together to basically slander Ubisoft, and Ubisoft has won that case against them, in part at least, proving it was actual slander. Whereas in the Activision Blizzard case, you would have a much harder time saying that multiple news reporting sites who have confirmed and corroborated and maybe supported Wall Street Journal conspired together to slander Activision Blizzard. When at a certain level, I think mainstream video game journalism does probably cover the back of each other and will corroborate claims on background without really disclosing a source or even really verifying a source. or even having a source really, just to support each other. It's very easy for video game journalist sites to potentially risk their name and support another site and say, yes, we heard the same thing, when they really didn't, because the name and the prestige and the credibility of mainstream video game journalism is already in the mud anyways. It's at zero, so they have nothing to lose. Whereas Wall Street Journal specifically, and the two French journalist sites actually do have credibility to lose. It would be crazy, though, in this hypothetical scenario that I'm tinfoil hat suggesting, for it to come out that actually no, the Wall Street Journal has just been secretly investing in Activision Blizzard, and they're trying to do a hostile takeover of the company, and they've propagated nothing short of lies to get rid of Bobby Kotick. That would be completely unbelievable if it weren't for the fact that it seems like things like that have happened before. The Papa John's incident in particular feels like there was Papa John as a person himself seems like he has made a very good argument to say that he was entrapped into saying something offensive and then pushed out of his own company by a investment group who is probably going to run Papa John's into the ground. He's made a very good conspiracy theory, at the very least, to defend him, while also saying that he doesn't actually condone the use of the word he said, and was actually tricked and forced into saying it on a recording, is his claim. Which, that is definitely a new lesson. Like, I definitely could see myself making the same mistake if I was running a business and I was in a training mission and I said, like, for example, we can't use the N-word, and then somebody tells me, no, actually, we need you to clearly define what the N-word is and say it for this training exercise. I could see myself, saying, okay, just for clarity, it's this word. I won't say it on YouTube or in any other case, and going forward, because seeing what happened to Papa John, that I wouldn't repeat his mistake now. But I definitely could see myself doing that in the past. Like, I'll even go one further. I could see in the past, or even now, trying to make an edgy joke amongst friends and then it getting recorded and blown out of proportion. Maybe I wouldn't use the N-word in an edgy joke, but I could definitely see myself making an edgy joke in some form or aspect and it being blown up. Yeah. The best part, taking the tinfoil hat off and talking about reality again, the biggest new piece about this continuing saga against Bobby Kotick and Activision Blizzard in general would be the death threat, which, if he actually made a death threat, he should be thrown in jail. And at a certain point, if you're in jail, I guess you can vote by proxy even in jail. I don't see any reason why that would happen any differently. You could try and trick him into signing over his power of attorney to somebody, but like, you still are not going to be able to strip shares away from him. You would have to convict him, probably criminally, of the death threat first, then sue him civilly for a death threat, which I'm sure there is a civil case there. I don't know what violation civilly you would be, but a death threat probably would count to that, and a criminal conviction would definitely be helpful in a civil case and like that. And then if he was convicted for the death threat in a civil case, then you could potentially have him owing the person he threatened personally so much money that they force him to sell his shares.
The real battle begins.
Probably not all of them, but some of them, to pay for the restitution. Anyways, I've talked way too much about that, and arguably everybody's talked way too much about it. This is a growing story that has gotten too big for anybody to manage on their plate, and now I'm at the beginning of being exhausted of hearing news about it, and I just want to hear the resolution, and that's it. Video Game Chronicle says Halo Infinite has hit more than 270,000 concurrent players on Steam within 8 hours of its release. Call of Duty updates its anti-cheat policy. Now players can be banned from the entire franchise, which this sounds really dangerous and unacceptable, frankly. That because that basically means that somebody who bought a past game, who bought previous Call of Duty games, can't play them because of some alleged violation, and it really puts a lot of power into the hands of the Call of Duty creators, who very nicely would be more than happy to ban a lot of people away from things. Like, at a certain point, you could have one of the older Call of Duty games with a server they want to shut down, and instead of just shutting down the server, they could do a ban wave of a bunch of people who barely deserved a ban or didn't deserve a ban at all. Then they could say, well, very few people are playing this game anymore after that ban wave because they banned everybody. You're updating the terms. This is another example of you don't really own anything, and corporations doing bait and switch techniques that should be illegal. In the world of online, when you buy a physical game that is online based, you should be guaranteed, if not a lifetime access to the servers, at least a reasonable amount of access to the servers. And banning people, it's just not a good practice, and we've seen it and I've said it a million times before. This really makes the idea of me ever wanting to play Call of Duty games just way less likely. I didn't have a lot of desire to play Call of Duty games in the first place, but like, I don't even suspect I would ever get banned, but I don't want to support a company that is really trying to take the concept of cancel culture and apply it to a digital video game format. And honestly, even if you were banning just cheaters, it's still too much to ban them from every game. You're really not leaving a path to retribution. A response to this for people who have ever been accused of cheating or banned for cheating, whether they actually cheated or not, is that fine, we're just going to go play the hacked, stolen, pirated version of this game. And that really is the only response. You've now backed people into a corner where it is now way better to steal all future Call of Duty games and play the hacked ones that are playing on hacked private servers, where you have little to no fear of being banned. And it's really not addressing, banning doesn't address the fact that some of these people who are cheating are not cheating because they just want to win. They're cheating because your game and the way you've balanced your game is not good. It's not just mustache twirling people that are just evil for no reason. It's not just people trying to build up accounts to sell them. There would be zero market to buy an account that's leveled up if it weren't for the fact that these games are designed badly, where you're playing against other people who are too difficult. You're not getting anywhere close to even a 50% win ratio. There's a whole ton of grinding in a lot of these games. I very rarely have to cheat in any form or factor playing single player games. Occasionally I'll run into a puzzle that's fairly hard and I'll put 3 or 4 hours into it, and then after that I'll say fine, let's just cheat this because it's not worth my time. And it's not satisfactory really when I do have to cheat something. But Call of Duty and a lot of these first-person shooter multiplayer games definitely have the fandom. You have your friends playing with you. You have games that people are liking. They just need to introduce an easy mode, introduce a non-ranked playing section just to get people out there. You'll still have cheaters, certainly, but nowhere near as much as people make out. And yeah, that is assuming it is just cheaters. The real truth is it's not just cheaters, it's also people that they are cancel culturing because they said one dirty word to their friends on chat. Yeah. And there is definitely a considerable effort here to confuse the issue and start with the anti-cheat policy, in this case allowing them to ban people from the entire franchise, and then the anti-cheat policy will just sneakily change from an anti-cheat policy to just a banning policy in general, that includes just bad behavior or bans. What do we want to do? Well, if we do that, we'll do 2 damage to that guy anyways. And then I guess if we do that, we'll heal. And then if we do that, we can level up. If we do that, we can level up. Let's see. Moving on, Call of Duty Vanguard is getting a free trial just 2 weeks after launch, if that interests you. Call of Duty studio head has stepped down following sexual harassment revelations. Treyarch's Danny Bunton has worked on the first-person shooter for 18 years. Which, yeah. If he stepped down, that is effectively just a admission of guilt. Let's see. This is yet another Wall Street Journal article, which I'm going to click on this just to see who the actual byline is, because they are literally now just always attributing it to Wall Street Journal. It was recommended that he be fired, but allegedly Bobby Kotick blocked the termination. So he like protected them. did leave the company, though, of his basically his own volition. That's what it seems like.
You're in good hands.
Yep, it definitely is a case where these accusations against Activision Blizzard definitely seem to be accurate. And I guess at this point, it is more than just that one person at Wall Street Journal, because this is a byline by 3 different people, which seems like a lot of work has been worked on this. It honestly feels like the Activision Blizzard story has expanded severely into being covered by almost everybody at Wall Street Journal. Now, let's just take a moment to show how awful Wall Street Journal really is as a website, and that you can't even read the full article. It just says sign in or subscribe. So news sources, newspapers in a digital era here, not even trying to propagate the news. Although in all fairness, newspapers have always done that and had only the front page available for the average person to read, and then the rest of the newspaper had to be purchased to read. So, yep. At a certain point, though, the main guy at Wall Street Journal may just be in charge of all these other employees, so, like, kind of doesn't matter who's on there. I would say I will just attribute it to Wall Street Journal at this going forward, because it does seem like there is a consistent effort here to report against Activision Blizzard, and it seems like it is a reasonable effort and reasonable action, considering how all of these accusations feel very true. Moving on, the pandemic has claimed another, says video game journalist. Saints Row has now slipped by 6 months, which arguably I severely doubt the Saints Row reboot has anything to do with it being delayed. I don't think the pandemic has anything to do with it. I think they heard feedback, and from hearing that feedback, they need to go back to the drawing board. Here you can see the initial trailer was met with division among fans of the series, and this has more dislikes than likes on YouTube, and this might very well be another case where the dislike count being removed came from. Is here you have a big corporation that's not happy that people can see people did not like this trailer. They need to come back on Saints Row, and they need to remove some of the wokeness, like particularly from the Saints Row game, like, because Saints Row as a concept was always supposed to be inappropriate, in the same way that GTA is inappropriate propagation of stereotypes against gangsters as in African Americans or gangsters as in Italians. All of that, even if those are actually accurate descriptions of what gangsters look, also propagate a stereotype, so there's a danger both ways. But yeah, Saints Row was supposed to be a parody of that. It's supposed to be crass humor, I think is how you pronounce is the word I'm thinking of. It's supposed to be offensive humor. So when you have your new team just trying to cover every single quadrant of woke as you can, it doesn't target the right audience, and it's no surprise. Also, in general, it just doesn't feel like Saints Row. Like the whole reason they're wearing purple and they're the Saints, I thought was because they were fans of LSU and the Mississippi football Saints. Wasn't that the original idea? So it would be Mississippi, like, I guess trailer trash should be your inspiration, at least a little bit, which, yeah, fancy what seems like obviously gay guy, shirtless guy with headphones. Like, this character works alone. He just doesn't work with the three other characters. Fancy, geeky, Poindexter kind of wimpy guy who could also be very gay. Doesn't really work for a gangster. Hot Mexican girl as a gangster, not even wearing purple in the suit at all, seems weird. I wouldn't be surprised if in the story they planned for her to be the traitor bad guy. She does fit that category very well, and this inspires a Scorpion. And then your main character is just kind of this was supposed to be in El Paso, so kind of, I guess she's supposed to be black, maybe Mexican, I don't know. Cowgirl, tough girl character. Like, she works too. Each of these characters could work, they just don't work together. Or they work, but these need to have been the 4 out there characters on the outskirts, and there needed to be about 5 or 6 standard gangster characters in the middle that are just kind of carbon copies. And you definitely needed a Gat-like character, just a wild and crazy gangster who just loves to do wild and crazy crime. This group of people, they look like kids. They could be the next generation, certainly. They could be the Ghostbusters afterlife to the Ghostbusters. But they need somebody who's kind of leading them down this path, guiding them, forcing them down this path. And then, like, halfway through the game, they decide they actually enjoy being criminals, and that they're having fun. Because honestly, this feels like a group of college kids that going out to a rave. It doesn't feel like a bunch of gangsters. And, like, frankly, if that was the beginning of the game, that would be fine. Is that if this was a group of college kids hanging out, going to a rave, they accidentally flush $10 million worth of cocaine down the toilet, and now they owe the original Saints Row gang $10 million, or they're gonna get killed, or their family's gonna get killed, and they make them be criminals. There is your setup. But at the very least, you need a Charlie to these Charlie's Angels, telling them and forcing them to work. Somebody like Gat to say, nope, you've got to work for us. You've got to establish a new gang here. At least there could be a tie-in at that. But honestly, you need a kind of manly man. There's still a high percentage of people who want to play as a Halo Master Chief like character, and that don't want to play as a tough lady or a wimpy guy. And while this guy may look fairly muscular, he still looks fairly gay and And yeah, you're missing your target audience there. And at a certain point, just know your audience. And I think you look to porn in particular for that. It's like porn literally lays out all the stereotypes. If you want a big, beautiful black woman, there's a category called big, beautiful black woman. There's no wokeness or African American terminology or anything like that. They just tell you straight up. If you want a Latino, there's a category for a Latino. If you want an Asian, there's a category for an Asian. That's because porn obviously knows its audience and is going to try and advertise its product to its audience as much as possible. I think there is also a danger, certainly, if you're going to set this in a southwestern American town. There's a real danger of touching upon the immigration crisis, and just immigration in general, and like you would think that the Saints as a gang would probably be using immigrants, smuggling them, acting as mules if they were a real gang, and then that would probably hit fairly close to home and be a dangerous topic to try and cover. But you could also fairly easily ignore that if you didn't want to cover that aspect. Moving on, Monster Hunter Rise is getting a free Sonic themed DLC with little Sonic outfits and a Sonic looking Sonic, and then a skin for some kind of Monster Hunter monster that looks sort of like Tails. Yeah. I think some of these crossovers for Monster Hunter are kind of ridiculous. Video Game Chronicle says modders have begun, quote, fixing GTA Trilogy following last week's backlash. Again, I don't know why you need a quote there for the word fixing. Seems like they specifically like to use the quote on the phrase fixing. Like, some of the problems are objectively wrong. Like, nobody is going to legitimately try to make an argument that when you shake the car back and forth, it stretches out weirdly, or that the graphics look terrible, or that they've increased the polygon count on a giant billboard of a nut so much that now the nut is a round donut. It's a circle when it was supposed to be a hexagonal nut. It definitely feels like the GTA trilogy was not done with care. There is, I think, some accusation that the GTA trilogy was based off of a mobile port of the GTA games instead of a fully remade remaster. It really is not the kind of game that you should that should have been remastered without care, considering how everybody else is doing a really good job with their remasters. Let's see.
The greater your sin, the crispier I
I'll
make.
see you in purgatory.
You were done for.
Guess we'll evolve here and see if we can win this way. Although I've never actually seen this work. So that what this really goes to show, without even getting deep into this, into the specific mods, is that there is fandom and a desire to improve things, improve the graphics, I think you can fairly easily say that
Fall.
Come, show me the limits of your will.
that this visuals here does not look as good as this visuals here. Maybe that was their plan in the first place, though, and there is
Smiles are the
potentially a
best
danger here that they figured they could just let the modders fix everything and do a bad job. They may very well be attempting the Bethesda Skyrim path of just re-releasing the game in a bad shape and letting modders fix it later. Video Games Chronicles has a review for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, saying they're faithful remakes for better or worse, which I'll leave it at that. Xbox Cloud Gaming has officially launched for consoles. It's available to Xbox owners with a Game Pass Ultimate subscription. That is people that own an Xbox X or S series or an Xbox One. Obviously, it's not coming back to people with Xbox 360s or Xbox original Xboxes.
Feel free to call on me again.
Let's see. November's Xbox update includes new accessibility and controller features. It also targets console shutdown issues when playing certain games. The console should never shut down when playing a game. That should be completely impossible, but in all fairness, it should also be completely impossible for computers to shut down, and yet that somehow happens. Do we want to do here? Or do we want to do this? I think you do this first. Then you do this.
I'm already a proper lady, you know. Ow. The sunlight is
I
unwelcome.
was hoping to hit that one. That didn't work. Let's go and just evolve.
The real battle begins. I've got all the magic I... Is that how you treat a lady?
A fitting end.
Let's see. So there's updated volume and the audio output settings.
My desire lies in the dungeon.
New and improved color filters. And accessibility feature tags in the store.
Where does it hurt?
Which I guess that's all the accessibility it really is doing is its added tags. So you now have these kind of color filters. And in all fairness, color filters at a system level probably is a better solution than having specific settings in each game or just completely missing from a lot of games. It may not directly address things as well as it should, and arguably setting in the system level should probably change something internally in the code for each game, but just being able to adjust everything at a system level, that is one of the problems with the Tableau, is that you can't, as an over-the-air DVR, you can't you can't create a situation where you can change the font sizes or the color scheme and it has white text on a light blue logo, and that's fairly hard to read. Like, I get that that's branding, certainly, and by default I don't mind you having it set that way, but frankly on the first setup you should say, hey, can you read this? If you can't, we're going to turn on bigger resolution and high visibility. It's not incredibly uncommon for a device to, at its first setup, be set up by a default visual level, and then let somebody help the final person use it. Google Android phones actually will start talking to you in the setup and just assume that you are blind if you don't do anything after a certain amount of time. And most people wouldn't even know that would happen, because they just would type in their password and log into Google account faster than that. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Xbox bosses Phil Spencer, who I think is probably not going to be the boss in a year or two at this rate, says NFT games, quote, feel more exploitive than about entertainment. So yeah, there is a heavy belief that NFTs in video games on consoles will never be a thing, until it is a thing, of course. Like, at a certain point, if NFTs are just now the new trading cards and they get a whole generation of kids stupidly obsessed about NFTs, it will be, it will happen, because people will go where the money is, certainly. And I expect if NFTs do become worth anything, it is going to be very much like the Beanie Babies bubble / scam of just convincing a lot of people that Beanie Babies are worth something, while being a monopoly of the only creator of Beanie Babies and controlling, strictly controlling the amount of availability of the product.
The horizon gives me inspiration.
Yeah. Moving on, Xbox Series S is estimated to have outsold the Series X in several key markets. The PS5 family has sold roughly double than that of the Xbox Series consoles. Interesting.
My raging flames have got
It's
your
interesting
back.
because you don't really get a lot of reports saying that, and it definitely doesn't feel like that's true, that the PlayStation has sold, PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 Slim or Pro had doubled the sales of the Series S and Series X. I almost would have to assume that it is just because of availability issues and not because of anything else. There is definitely an argument, though, that Microsoft doesn't really even need, and maybe I'm just being too much of a Microsoft fanboy in saying this, but I don't think the Xbox Series S or X has to really sell as much as the PS5, because there is the feeling that the Series S and Series X are really just a Pro Plus version of the Xbox Ones, which I expect they're still doing very well with the Xbox Ones. Whereas it feels like there's a lot less backward compatibility and a lot more of a reason to buy a PS5 compared to buying a PS4. I don't think too many PlayStation fans out there would be willing to just to settle for a PS4.
Let's revel in the fun.
And personally, as somebody who would only get a PS5 or a PS4 for a Blu-ray player, I'm not sure that there really is any real difference between having a PS4 or a PS5 if all I'm going to do is try and play like 4K Ultra HD
So weird.
Blu-rays on it.
Well, you're not worth my time.
I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers catch up over the next year,
I pray
or
that you will be
even
freed from
completely switch positions. We are now getting to the point where even the PlayStation's Jim Ryan is saying he's stunned in an email criticizing Bobby Kotick's response, saying Activision, quote, has not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination, which that is a dangerous step to certainly take, because Now, any small person who's ever made a complaint against PlayStation, even before Jim Ryan was kind of in charge of Sony Interactive Entertainment, or could come out of the woodworks and say, "Oh yeah, Jim Ryan, well you didn't handle this either." But yeah, when you've got other CEOs specifically speaking out against you, it really shows you're in trouble. Bobby Kotick is in trouble. I imagine there is probably some deep-seated hate for Bobby Kotick. I bet people really don't like him, which is probably saying quite a lot, because like even Trump, who seemingly pissed off everybody he ever met in business, even Trump was not really insulted that much by other politicians, and I mean other businessmen, until much later into his presidential run. There was definitely one or two people that were outspoken against him, but yeah. Let's see. Guess you start with this one.
You crossed the line.
Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says an Atari legend has denied working on a quote unreleased game that Atari is selling for up to $150. And Howard Scott Warsaw tells Video Games Chronicles that he had nothing to do with the new Atari XP range attributed to him. So, wow, that seems kind of crazy to attribute a game to somebody when they didn't actually work on it. Although that was kind of fairly common for Atari to either not attribute anybody or attribute the wrong person, the CEO, the higher up manager, as the person who made a game. That is like the whole old Thomas Edison trick, certainly. Just put your name on everything like you actually worked on it, when really it was your employees or people you robbed or stole patents from. It's another reason, certainly, to rethink the idea of a corporation in general. If corporations exist only to steal the attribution and the profits from doing something, then maybe corporations should not be allowed to do that, or should not be allowed to exist in those ways anyways. You see that certainly with the comic book industry too, and the general idea of artists being contractors and then writing books or drawing art and getting paid very little to make something that sells very large amounts. Disney animators in particular, not particularly well treated for some of their old movies, getting making billions of dollars over the course of decades, or the Munchkins and the Wizard of Oz not getting attributed as anything other than the Munchkins. So a significant portion of your cast just not labeled. The Wizard of Oz is kind of a great example of not attributing anybody who actually worked on the movie. Moving on back to video games, the departing Blizzard boss says she was only offered pay parity with the male co-studio head after resigning. Jen O'Neill claims Activision Blizzard rejected multiple requests for equal pay.
Stronger armor.
Which, yeah, man, if you were the co-studio head and you're still getting paid less than your male counterpart, like, that is unacceptable, to say the least. It's unacceptable in any case for a female to be paid less than a male for doing the same amount of work. In fact, it's literally illegal. It's discrimination. It's a clear-cut case of discrimination. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jen O'Neill is going to be a major factor in a sexual discrimination case against Activision Blizzard. When you literally have the same workload, same title, same position, same amount of education and experience, I assume. I mean, honestly, it kind of doesn't even matter if she had way less education and way less experience, because at the end of the day, she was still given the same title, same position, and same workload. Yeah, you can't pay people differently like that. Like, if I was going to start a business today, I would pretty much want to... One of the first conversations I'd want to have... I don't think I've ever seen this card before. One of the first conversations I'd want to have is would be, how can I list everyone's pay at the beginning and piss off the least amount of people? Somebody's going to be pissed off, but like, can I specifically have a manager that's managing 10 people get paid 25% more, 50% more, 200 times more than the associate level, entry level employees? And can I post that price without people being pissed off? So if I was like making a restaurant and I'm paying people $10 an hour, can I pay the manager $20 an hour? I think you probably can't go much more than that. And then can I pay the pay the manager of the manager, the boss, me, $40 an hour? I could probably not go any further than that. But yeah, try to make a very flat pay structure that could actually publish the prices. That eliminates so many complaints, so many problems, so much resentment that is just secretly boiling under the table amongst employees. But yeah, a nice flat management structure would be the kind of business I'd want to build, with a flat pay structure assigned to that. Oddly, in union jobs, you do have that amongst the associates, but seniority is taken into account too. So having been at a company for a longer amount of time, you would get higher pay raises. And even in that case, it sometimes creates some disparity where the new employees are barely getting paid minimum wage, but the employees doing the exact same job that have been there 10 years are getting paid like double what the new employees are getting paid. And that happens in particular because the union members and the people in charge of running the union or negotiating the contracts tend to be the people with the highest seniority, so they do a kind of unethical thing where they negotiate to increase their pay raise a little bit more than the new employees. But yeah, that you see situations like that, and this is one of the examples where unions can turn bad, where you have teacher unions run by the most senior teachers, but the most senior teachers are also the ones that have not bothered to learn any new teaching strategies, or don't in general just bother to actually do a good job as teachers, because they've got tenure and can't be fired for performance, or it'd be very hard to fire them. Whereas a new teacher might be bad, or might be a breath of fresh air. And certainly, to get back to video games, Jen O'Neill could have been a breath of fresh air for Activision Blizzard. But even when she was named as the head, which felt like that only happened a few weeks ago.
This is more than just a game.
Unless this is someone else, and I'm thinking of a different story. August. Yeah.
Your queen commands you.
Yeah, in August this happened. So it really wasn't that long ago.
Commands you.
Yeah, even then though, it felt like this was simply a case of them picking a female and just being sexist and trying to have a female figurehead as the co-leader. I think they very much thought that she would just be a yes woman and let the male co-leader make all the real decisions.
To fail.
Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says the PC version of Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is currently free to download. It's being given away as part of Ubisoft's 35th anniversary simulation. I think you probably have to get it from Uplay though. Let's see. Yeah, they don't even really have a link here. Yeah, if I click on this one, it just takes me to their website. Yeah. So, Video Games Chronicle is doing a really bad job of having just a link.
Don't call me short.
Everything was for today.
Yeah. So yeah, here's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory on Steam. It is right now on sale for $2.49. It is not free on Steam.
I've been training hard for this day.
So it's only on
Move
Uplay.
out. Annihilate them.
Moving on, Yakuza Studios Ryu Ga Gotoku is working on a new franchise. It's currently unknown whether the Judgment series will continue or not. I think there might be a very high chance it won't, considering the controversy around it, in which one of the actors was caught using drugs, and that's like a big no-no in Japanese culture. Let's see. Safety, I guess we have to play a safety here.
Not far to go.
Alien Isolation is coming to mobiles, quote, without compromise in December, which I don't know. I don't really believe you can make the argument that any game can come to mobile without some level of compromise. Mobile phone games are just not that good. What's funny is this Alien Isolation game doesn't seem like it even has aliens in it. And I have never been able to do more than slightly be interested in the Alien series.
War. The most profitable trade.
Yeah, I'm yawning here. Yeah, I've never been able to follow the Alien series, and there haven't been enough good Aliens video games as a licensed video game series to justify actually attempting to play player cover them.
A horizon gives me inspiration.
Okay.
You wouldn't.
Darn it! I won't lose next time.
You're in good hands.
Well, what do we want to do? I should have stopped this one from attacking, but whatever. Video Games Chronicles has an article. Activision reportedly says that there's no evidence against Bobby Kotick, so the zero tolerance policy can't be applied. Basically doubling down in the defense of the CEO is how they're phrasing it. Now, in all fairness, we've seen no evidence. Could be we intentionally did not gather any evidence and fired anybody who might actually have presented us evidence. Or you could try and be the devil's advocate here, which very quickly Bobby Kotick is being displayed as the devil, and maybe rightfully so, and say maybe there actually is no evidence, and like maybe this is more of a situation where 70% of the accusations are true, but the actual accusations against Bobby Kotick in particular are not true. Like, I find that hard to believe. Like, but the whole court system is all about the idea of innocent until proven guilty. Whereas cancel culture and news is all about guilty no matter what. Video Games Chronicles. It's taken us 2 hours and 30 minutes just to get through all the Video Games Chronicles news. Says Call of Duty Vanguard updates, adds a shipment map and resolves issues of stopping some PlayStation 5 users from playing. Check that out if you're interested. Now we're to the Gamatsu articles, which honestly I prefer the Gamatsu articles a lot more. And had I actually curated articles, I don't think I've ever actually curated articles that much. I've gotten rid of a few repetitive Shin Megami Tensei press release type articles, and that's about it.
This is where I truly shine.
You still got far to go.
Gamatsu has a game called Moon and Blackbird for the PS4 and 5, launching December 16th.
I am no saint.
Seems like it's 2 separate games. They don't have a video here. What kind of games are they?
Books avail me not.
Apparently, Moon is an anti-RPG. Blackbird is apparently an RPG too. They seem like they probably are both RPGs. I don't recognize either one of these, which may not mean much.
This is where I truly shine.
Let's see. Disgaea RPG for PC is coming to Steam in the West, which, I mean, maybe that would be a way to attempt getting into the Disgaea universe and the Disgaea characters without playing the strategy placement games of the Disgaea series, which is the main Disgaea series. I think you probably still wouldn't really convince me to play the Disgaea series at that point. That seems like I'm just bending over backwards in an attempt to
The greater your sin, the crispier I make it.
play something Disgaea, when really I should just move over to a different JRPG series or a different, more Japanese focused game, since Disgaea is not really a JRPG series. We'll check it out. World's End Club is coming to PC on November 30th. It's currently available on Switch and Apple Arcade. I think I've heard this number, but the name of this game, but I don't think I've ever even seen it before. Yep, we're getting a lot of videos here without, or articles without videos. The problem with this title is it's easily confused with The World Ends With You. Grim Dawn Definitive Edition is coming to Xbox One on December 30th. Do I know what Grim Dawn is? Not directly. It's an action RPG according to the tags. IGI Independent Game Incubator's first edition demo day premiere live stream is set for November 26th. So this feels like this is a collection of games that are indie games. This might be the indie game initiative, might be the one being funded by Sony to have a bunch of, I think it was Chinese game developers make indie games. Some of this looks interesting, but any indie game just coming out and being announced now may not actually be available for purchase or play for quite a while, and they might just be incredibly short, disappointing things, short, disappointing games. Let's see, The Plane Effect is coming to the PS4 and Xbox One on December 2nd. And either I've blocked... Let's go ahead and just test this. Let's reset this page with the ad blocking disabled, and let's see if there are videos. Because Gamatsu was changing their website, and for a brief time, Gamatsu was actually down, and they apologized for it, and I was going to report on that just to say, hey, yeah, even Gamatsu sometimes has some downtime compared to like the Epic Store, which is kind of constantly having downtime. But I guess they maybe have just changed the way they've done things. I don't know why I keep getting these characters with rewards. I must be doing the battle pass. That must be what I'm unlocking. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, is I'm unlocking the battle pass and getting characters. I only need 2 more ranked wins or unranked wins, and I'd have all the daily quests done today, which is kind of shocking because I was expecting to probably not be able to finish everything, and I think I'm not going to be able to finish everything. Let's just get the news done at least. Dragon Ball The Breakers has been announced for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This seems to be kind of a throwback to the early Dragon Balls, because you don't see the pig guy that much. Look how his ear just looks like a slice of ham. And you don't see Bulma in her old outfit as much. That being said, when you're getting to Cell and Frieza, you're halfway, like Boo here. You're getting into the later parts of Dragon Ball Z, but I don't recognize either one of these characters, so these might be something different. Maybe there is this element where they are retelling the origins of Dragon Ball and doing some time travel. Like, it wouldn't be a terrible idea, frankly. Yeah. That's what this looks like, is that they probably are time traveling to the past. It wouldn't be a terrible idea to have a Dragon Ball series that redid the animation of the original Dragon Ball and tried to retell that story to a new generation. Although it's not like the original Dragon Ball series is terrible looking. You could probably edit it down and shorten it. Take it very firmly out of the place of being something like a cartoon that airs every Saturday to keep people's attention, and putting it into more of an abridged story that is designed to just tell the important aspects, get rid of the fluff, get rid of the garbage, maybe get rid of some of the lewd jokes that don't fly as well to the Western world. Yeah, I imagine kids today, if they were going to get into Dragon Ball, would just read the Dragon Ball manga in Japan and get the full story that way, instead of watching the original Dragon Ball cartoon. And if kids are into Dragon Ball in Japan, I imagine they are just into the latest Dragon Balls series, not the older stuff. Moving on, Pixel Art Chef RPG has been announced for Switch and PC, which, with everything being blurred, the blurring still happening. Like, it's nice to see something work and not just undo itself after a couple of weeks, which I suspect, particularly for Chrome as a Chrome extension, it would potentially break at some point and stop the blurring. Pixel Art Chef does not look particularly interesting to me. A game called Jumping Flash and Pilot Wings inspired first-person platformer Forza Polpo for PC launches in early access on November 24th. Like, seems like that's 2 games. Yeah, this does not look like Pilot Wings to me. Is Jumping Flash an old game I don't recognize? Maybe. Like, I'm not seeing a lot here that feels like Pilot Wings. Yeah, I guess there is a game called Jumping Flash and I just don't recognize it.
This is how you do fireworks. Well, aren't you something?
Let's see. A game called
This is more than just
Riot Forge X Switch Showcase happened on November 16th. I guess they announced something. If I don't have articles talking about that announcement, though, I guess too bad. I'm not really willing to go any further with that.
I'll get it right this time. You're done for. Where'd you go?
My armor has been pierced.
Why is this so hard?
A game called Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story, has been announced for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. So, seems like we're gonna just continuously get these League of Legends spin-off games.
This is more than just a game.
Which it kind of makes sense, because the characters from League of Legends are fairly weird looking and varied in their appearance, so
I'm hopeless.
making separate games as kind of an and like retroactively turning League of Legends into a crossover game is an interesting thought. Draw a card, heal. Let's just heal. A game called Conv/Urgent, a League of Legends story, launches for everything in 2022. You can see how this art style is very different, and the gameplay is more of a 2D hack and slash platformer. So they are making very different things. The one thing I would say though is I'm in a weird position with this kind of games because I don't care about League of Legends at all, so yeah.
Smiles are the best
That's something that would have to be accounted for too. Also, Ruined King, a League of Legends story, is now available. And here you have yet a third different game. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these games lose the League of Legends stories elements fairly quickly. And I heavily suspect only a few of these games will actually be good. And a Ruined King does not look like one that particularly would be one of the better ones.
I won't hold back. We haven't lost yet.
Unlike the Telltale games or something, there might be something there
Call on me
worth
again.
playing as kind of a Diablo-esque experience. But unlike the Telltale games, there's no connection that I really feel to justify
End of the road, eh?
playing
Refuse to fail. Out of my way.
playing every game just because it says League of Legends, because there's such different types of games. And unlike the Walking Dead series of Telltale games, there's no connection to play those specifically because they are in the same narrative, or somewhat in the same narrative, because they don't really feel like they are. Yeah, it definitely does feel like I'm still gonna have to add cushioning to this recliner. 3 hours into it, yeah.
Like a beast from the void.
Even with a recliner, I need like a ton of more cushioning.
I envy you.
But it's ridiculous. I had like probably 6 inches of padding and cushioning the chairs. I guess that is a problem with just sitting far too long, in part. But this is also a chair, particularly right now with my back being bad, where I've had to add a pillow to my back, and shifting around does not really work. Like, I can lean forward and I can lean back with mechanical assistance now versus just manually doing that. But that doesn't really work too well. If I lean back and just go for the laid back experience, I eventually
Is
hit the
fighting
wall.
and despair all you know? Let me
anyways.
take you to the underworld.
That this recliner, since it can lie flat, only makes sense and only works if it is basically in the middle of a room. And being against the wall limits it. Where it would be really nice if it had a track where it moved forward on the track, or just straight up had wheels that would move forward an inch for every time it leaned back an inch. And then when it leaned forward to stand up out of it, it would sit it back against the wall. And they do make furniture that's somewhat like that, but it is fancy and expensive. Not to say that this recliner isn't expensive or fancy. Moving on, Gamatsu says Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin details several Pirate Captain Burke Cornelia royal family, break gauge, instant abilities, and more. Okay. I don't think I need particularly to be hyped about a Final Fantasy game. My interest in playing a Final Fantasy spin-off game in particular is as high as it probably ever would be. Which is to say, not particularly that high. This does certainly seem like this is more of a fantasy Final Fantasy game versus later Final Fantasy games that became more sci-fi with swords. We already talked about the Game Award nominees being announced. Famitsu has its review scores for 720. They gave a game called Asasugutori 27 out of 40. That's particularly low. A game called Deer Simulator, your average everyday deer game, 32 out of 40, about average. And then Pro Power Kun Pocket R, 32 out of 40. Remember, the last issue from Famitsu, if I recall correctly, reviewed only one game and gave it an average score. And now we've had 3 games reviewed, and they were all particularly bad no-name games. It is not particularly a good experience right now to be a gamer in Japan if you're looking for brand new games. The good news is next week Pokemon Shining Diamond and Pearl will probably be reviewed, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is what is actually going on, is they are simply playing that in secret, getting ready to release a review of that, and they didn't have time to cover any other games.
Stop!
Komatsu also has Saints Row being delayed to August 23rd. Here we have a different picture of Saints Row. In this one, he's got these tattoos, which he didn't have in the previous picture. But then the nerdy black guy is missing from this, and at least this time the hacker girl is wearing purple, but she's not wearing purple at this point. He's got Saints tattoos on him, but he's wearing green also. It's almost like there's an intentional desire here to get away from the neon purple into a green. Inherently, that was something I took away from the trailer as I briefly looked at it for the Saints Row reboot, is this general desire to make a game that's not even Saints Row and call it Saints Row. It didn't feel like they really wanted to make a Saints Row game. Komatsu says the Embracer Group expects to acquire another 37 or so studios in the next 12 months. That seems like a really ambitious number, but also it really just proves that Embracer Group as a company has no desire to stop acquiring people and say enough is enough. They are just going to move full-heartedly until they are the next EA or Activision Blizzard that just has acquired far too many people for their own good.
Feel free to call on me again.
Like,
No! No!
I would way more agree with Microsoft's number of acquisitions, being a little bit more conservative about it,
I'll get it right this time.
and acquiring the right number of companies and not just acquiring a bunch of companies. A game called Vaporeum Lockdown for the PS4, PS5, and Xbox One launches December 10th, which I guess we can look at this trailer for a brief second. This is the dungeon crawler, random dungeon generated game. Yeah. The Western dungeon crawler, which probably won't succeed that well, because dungeon crawlers tend not to succeed.
Wager your soul. I'll sunder you.
I'm hopeless.
Let's see, the Gotoku studio director says Yakuza 8 is set several years after Like a Dragon, and a non-Yakuza and Judgment titles are in the works. So a little bit more information there in that article. Grand Blue Fantasy Festival 2021 has been set for December 11th and 12th. Which, okay. Monster Hunter Rise X Sonic the Hedgehog collaboration begins November 26th. Which, we already talked about that. In a Bridge of Spirits Physical Edition launches November 19th. A little late to the party to release a physical edition. Although at a certain point I could see a future where big video games, or maybe just AA and single A video games, release digitally first and then wait until Black Friday to actually release physical editions, if ever. Like we might see a growing divide between physical and digital. Like it wouldn't be crazy to simply have code redemption codes, particularly if GameStop is not involved in negotiations that much. I could see Walmart and places like that just saying, here's a code redemption card we can give you to download it now, or we can wait. You can wait until it comes out in physical months down the line. Particularly if they created a scenario where you got a digital copy when you bought the physical copy also, and a digital copy is only playable. My back twinged again. Yep, I need to wrap up fairly quickly, otherwise this is going to get really out of hand. I could see a case where if you created digital copies that are not playable at the same time as a physical copy, it would make a lot of sense to give both digital first and then physical later. If you redeemed it, you'd see a small number of people actually redeeming the physical copies in that case, I think. Save yourself on production. Anyways, Gematsu has a game called Heavenly Bodies launching December 7th. Elix 2 has a Factions trailer if you're interested in checking that out. Windjammers 2 adds an Xbox One version and has a Sammy Ho and Jordi Costa trailer. Street Fighter V Championship Edition Fall Update livestream is set for November 23rd. A game called Wolfstride launches December 7th. Xbox Cloud Gaming is now available for Xbox Series and Xbox One. We had already talked about that. Can we win here?
A horizon gives me inspiration.
Let's see. I think if you do this and then this, and then this.
The time for perennial prayer has come.
That was a bad move.
You're in good hands.
Let's see. Sam & Max Beyond Time and Space Remastered has been announced for Xbox One, Switch, and PC, which I assume is just a remaster of the second season of the Sam & Max games, which were released episodically, so it gets kind of weird because like Beyond Time and Space may have been labeled as Season 1 for the first episode. I'd have to double check to be certain how that actually played.
crossed the line.
And then Gamatsu has an article, Ludo, the game Luto, launches for PS5, PS4, and PC in 2022. It's a first-person psychological horror game. It has a new trailer. We won't get too hyped about it though. We had already talked about, we're now at the GameDeveloper.com articles. Skate 2 servers shut down, announced Rydo as it's made backwards compatible. The ZX Spectrum developer Bernie Drummond has died. So he worked on a game called Head Over Heels, but also designed the Batman X ZX Spectrum game. Let's see, do we have anything in this obituary that actually as far as how he died? No. Other than he would be missed. In general, just well wishes and condolences. I wonder if maybe well wishes is the wrong word to use there.
Your shining faith will carry you.
Forges the soul.
Is there any way to prevent failure here?
The real battle begins. I've got all the magic I need. Is that how you treat a lady?
Next story, Thunderful has bought Early Morning Studio to expand its mobile business, which they were the developer of Vampire's Fall Origins. This definitely looks more like a Diablo mobile game, but maybe not. Maybe it just the fonts looks a lot like Diablo. There probably is nothing that stops somebody from having a cross in the O's to make it look a lot like the Diablo font. That probably is not something you could copyright specifically, or it's probably a licensed font that is copyrighted by the font owner. Moving on, Genshin Impact's creator MiHoYo has opened a Canadian studio to support a AAA development. I have to be careful pronouncing MiHoYo because my next words out of my mouth were going to be yo-yo, yo-ho, and a bottle of rum. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Nothing else really to say. Private Division has acquired the Ollie developer Roll7, another acquisition. Ubisoft is opening a fourth Quebec studio to support development on key franchises. Phil Spencer seems wary of a, quote, exploitative NFT projects. Grassroots angers that Activision Blizzard leadership is fueling more employee walkouts, and that at this point, at least you have a decent number of people protesting and walking out. That being said, you could easily dismiss this if you're uninterested and say, for every 3 people here, maybe there is a wife and brother of one employee. So, yeah, you would like longer lines. There's a lot of people out here in the shadow, too, kind of in the shade. Maybe for actual shade, or maybe because they didn't want to actually be seen. A lot of people wearing masks in the back also. So, although I think wearing a face mask is not going to really hide your identity if you're an employee at Blizzard. This is from November 16th. So, yeah, if they can now just get down to the point of actually forming a union, and instead of simply trying to get rid of Bobby Kotick, which you get rid of Bobby Kotick and somebody else is going to come into power, and they may be a lot better than Bobby Kotick, but they're still going to be a manager, and you still need a union. Otherwise, you're going to just be having the same fight again in a few years when the new guy turns out to be just as bad as the old guy. You have institutionalized problems that can only be slightly controlled and limited through unionization, real union power and bargaining power. But there is always going to be a push and a fight between associates and management, and you can't just ad hoc deal with one problem and then think everything else is going to be fixed, and that it always will be fixed. Like, the ideal scenario for a job that has a union is that the union has gotten all of their demands. They're very happy. All the associates are very happy with how they're treated and paid, and there's never really any real need to have union meetings or talk or do anything like that. But that's very rarely how it goes. At the very least, there's always renewing of the union contracts to get better raises that have to happen. I mean, I suppose the management could sign a union contract in perpetuity, but I don't think either sides would be happy with that. Actually, it's illegal to have contracts last longer than 100 years, and even 100 years is kind of ridiculous. Am I remembering that right? Was it 100 years or was it 7 years? That's a big gap to be wrong about, certainly. But yeah, I think 7 years would be about as long as you want to have a contract last.
Open your ears. Justice himself is speaking.
Like, now, in this next GameDeveloper.com article, which definitely they have a perspective here they're going to push, this is the Sony Jim Ryan article, and they have just used more photos of the same protest, which in this instance, that is not really the right photo to use if you're going to use a photo at all, because Sony's Jim Ryan saying that Activision has not properly managed the ongoing crisis really has nothing to do with the employees walking out and striking or picketing, not actually even striking. And then same stories. Departing Blizzard co-lead tells colleagues she was only offered equal pay after resigning. The Super Hot Doves have raised $3 million to expand homebrew sales tracking platform Indie BL. Now, when they say homebrew, do they mean homebrew beer, or do they mean some kind of homebrew programs? Yeah, it's for PC. So it's homebrew programming. Yeah. I don't know why for a second there I thought it would be home brewing of alcohol. Then same article, Activision Blizzard double downs in Codex defense in an all-hands meeting. Check out that article if you're interested. Some Activision Blizzard shareholders are calling for Bobby Kotick's resignation. Which, in all fairness, even if there was an active conspiracy against Bobby Kotick, which I don't believe really is happening here, he has failed to even manage that so poorly that I would understand shareholders calling for his resignation, even if they were not, even if they otherwise wanted to support Bobby Kotick. Like, at a certain point you fall on his sword, and he is well past that point.
Your shining faith will carry you.
I never get a chance to speak.
And then GameDeveloper.com says Frogwares has amended the Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 credits after a quote unintentional omissions. This was unintentional, and we're going to release a patch to rectify that. This may be the first time I have ever heard of anyone fixing their credits and claiming it was unintentional. We've had several stories where it was very much intentional and admitted to be intentional that people were left out. The title's feature designer, Vajim Kudafin, wasn't named in the credits. A number of other names had been left out, the majority of whom had left a Ukrainian studio before the launch. It's not uncommon for that to happen. If you're not there on launch day, they remove your names, which is just BS. And more argument that game developers need a general union that has standards that say if you worked on any part of this game at all, you should be credited. Frankly, if you were a intern who wrote one line of code on the game, if you were a quality assistant tester, just put the names on the credits. It's not like credits are gonna ever get any shorter anyways. It's not like it ties to any royalties or anything along those lines. It is purely just laziness or spite that are the only reasons that people's names are getting left out of credits.
Shutting down.
Put the janitors' names in the credits. I mean, half the time they put wives and pets' names in credits. So do humans the same favor. Alright, anyways, I think this will be our last game, so let's try and just burn through a few games. We're not going to get through too many though, and then we'll just leave the rest for Friday, which will be a nightmare. In fact, what I'll do is I'm just going to adopt a yes/no situation here without scrolling down for this case. Like Pro Basketball Manager, obviously a no. A game called The Glade, obviously a no. Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, obviously a follow.
Shall guide you if they don't kill you first.
Yep. Every time I see Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, it does look like it's just visually better looking than it probably has a right to be. I'm just hoping that it actually gets reviewed fairly well. Also, I want the whole game. G mode. So, yeah, I would only get Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 after it was a full game. Maybe Chapter 1 is a full game and it's just badly labeled like it's an episodic game. G mode is going to be a no. Dim Egen is going to be a no. Mon Cage, I think we'll put on the fall list. Honestly, this really just goes to prove I could go through games a lot faster if I don't look at the price, don't look at the languages. Space Gaze is going to be a no. Dino Club is going to be a no. Ollie Op, I'll put on the fall list. I think the problem though is that you're going to end up with a lot more things on the fall list if you play that way, but that may not be as big of a deal either because
Mean son of a gun, ain't you?
because yeah, if I got rid of the garbage games that I could just say no to very fast, I may have more free time to do follow list cleanups and reevaluate. This game, Photalk, is going to be a no. Rory's Restaurant, Winter Rush is going to be a no. Space Waves, it's going to be a no. I'm like clicking on screenshots for games that I don't even know. Tavern Master, I think we still say no to that. Yeah, it's still a simulation game where you're just doing somebody's job. I'm not interested in that. Farming Simulator 2022. I might make a slight exception for this and put this on the fall list. but only because I'm slightly interested in seeing the mechanisms and the way you'd actually farm. But I'd probably get bored of it very quickly.
It won't be long now.
I think I'll say yes to quick draw.
The earth
Looks
shall
like there
quake with every bolt.
might be something to this. It's a little pixely for my taste, but maybe. Neo Spectrum. Looks like it's probably just a platforming game, so I'm gonna say no.
Nothing stops me
Destruction
once
of
I got my
Planets.
speed
There is a
beat
chance
down.
here I'll miss something of interest, but
How fun it is to converse.
yeah, this doesn't look like anything. You're just shooting things. Jumping Man Mine. It's gonna be a no. Mist Run is an infinite runner, so I'm gonna say no. Chaos Uproar. It looks like a dark screenshot first person shooter, so I'm gonna say no. Starcrawler Cinema. Or no, Starcrawler's Chimera. I'll put on the follow list. Country Balls Heroes. These are kind of memey, but I'm gonna put them on the follow list and think about it some more. The Last Stand Aftermath is some kind of zombie game. Looks fairly polished, so I'm gonna give it a follow. Grow the Song of Eve Evertree. Looks like something of interest, so I'll put it on the follow list. Combat Mission Cold War is going to be a no. Signals, some kind of economy management game. I think I'll say no to. Marsupilami Too Bad Adventure. Looks like something like a 2D platformer. Marsupilami, I guess that's how you pronounce that. Put that on the follow list. Rune King League of Legends story needs to be on the follow list. Let's see, Wadality. Looks like nothing, so I'm going to say no to that. Another League of Legends game we'll say put on the follow list. Hextech Mayhem. Game called The Pathless. Looks like it might be something of interest. This almost feels like that other game with a hawk that came out a while ago. Maybe it is, and it's just now it's coming to Steam. Rob Riches. Looks like a puzzle game. Maybe it's got some polish to it, so I'll give it a follow. Here we have a Chinese game that I think is probably Chinese only, so we'll say no to that. Here we have a game called Super Ick, which looks like a joke game of no quality, so I'll say no to that. Here we have something called Village, which looks like a live action FMV, so I'll put it on the follow list just to see if there's something there. Here we have Spookware Watch Party, which seems to be a collection of mini games. Which is probably nothing, but it might be something like a Mario Party clone. It's also free, so I'll put it on the follow list. I think at this point we're saying no to anything that's furry Shakespeare. Nightwalker 2. Looks like something that's probably just an asset flip game, but I'll put it on the follow list. Slot Factory is just a slot machine game, so we'll say no to that. River of Rain looks like a nicely animated platformer, so I'll give it a follow. Unsold. It might be a game here. Yeah, I feel like I am putting a lot more on the follow list than I normally would. The Spirit Trials. I think we can say no to that. Echo and Indie Tale. Looks like a frustration platformer, so we'll say no to that. Here we have something called Atoll that just looks like it's an asset flip game of no interest, so I'll say no to that. Here we have something called Corkillians, which looks like garbage. Maybe a tower defense game. Yeah, that's what it is. No to that. Cat Wars looks like it's probably a troll joke game, so we'll say no to that. Kingdom Concourse is probably a Chinese only game. Yep, no to that. Zangle looks a little rough, but there might be something to this. Probably not. $9.99. We'll just put it on the follow list. Polycat Puzzles we can say no to. Chaos Collection Random Games we can say no to. League of Labbit the Golden Pearl might have something to it, so we'll give it a follow. Tep the Destroyer looks like nothing interesting. A tower defense game, no to that. Lawnmower game. Pinball looks incredibly low effort for even a pinball game, so I'll have to say no to that. The Five Covens looks like something of interest. Maybe a kid's game. Here we have a game called That Flipping Mountain, which looks like nothing of interest. Here we have Chronicles of Deeps. There might be something there, but I'm being extremely generous in that case. Jolt Project we can say no to. Bulb Emporium I think we can say no to. I'm going to be very strict going forward on like factory style games, and I think that's kind of what this is. It's labeled as automation, like I think automation games. We have How to Bathe Your Cat, which looks like one of those puzzle games, which arguably has more polish again, so I'll give it a follow. But the only reason I cover a game like that is just for silliness reason. World Tree here looks like MS Paint level graphics, so no. Balrog looks like a very old game being ported, and yeah, I have no interest in it, so no. Darius Cosmic Collection Arcade, it looks like it's just side-scrolling shooter games, but it's from Taito, so I'm going to put it on the follow list just to think about it, but it's probably a no. Find a Murderer, obviously it's going to be a no. Blue Wish Desire is going to be a no. Motorcycle Mechanic Simulator is mixed, but I'll give it a little bit more time to get more reviews. Madverda City looks like a simplistic puzzle game, so that's going to be a no. Next Space Rebels looks like it might be a FTL game or Kerbal Space Program game with also a full motion video, so I bet there's actually nothing good here, but I'll put it on the follow list just to give it a chance. Pumpkin Eater looks terribly animated. I don't know if this is supposed to be a horror visual novel. I guess it is. But yeah. This is one of those cases where you may have a decent story, but your animation skills are just so lackluster that you shouldn't have made a visual novel, and you should have just written a short story. Even if that means less people would actually ever see it. This game we can say no to. It looks like obviously it's just a kind of joke chess based game, although maybe not really playing chess. Warhammer we'll give a chance to put on the follow list just because of the name Warhammer. Factory Town, not a good example of an automation game that I'm just gonna say no to. The Jewel of Moon Structure looks like a visual novel of some interest, so we'll put it on the follow list. Slime Escape looks like nothing, so we'll say no to that. Once in Flower Lake looks far too white with all the snow for its own good, so I'm going to say no to that. Just make an executive decision. Arcadia Fallen looks like it might have something, so I'll give it a follow. Roll the Cat. Looks like nothing of interest. So we'll say no to that. Stay Alive on the Tank. Explosive Shells in the Darkness is obviously nothing, so we'll say no. Pangea. Turn-based strategy tabletop game. It doesn't look particularly interesting, so I'm going to say no. Hard Work Simulator looks like a joke game, so I'm going to say no to that. Wolf Riot looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter of no real interest, so I think we'll say no to that. You play as a werewolf, which I'll give it a chance because you play as a werewolf. You don't get too many good werewolf games. Pro Soccer Online we can just immediately say no to. Halo Infinite, obviously we can just put that on the wish list. There's no reason to go any further with that. Velcian Gambit, some kind of visual novel time management game with a very different art style. I think that deserves a follow. Dark Zone Idol RPG, mostly negative. We can say no to that. I Told You So looks like a visual novel with chibi art style. There might be something there. Something called Facility. Looks like an asset flip horror game of no interest. So we'll say no to that. The Sequence 2. Maybe there is some puzzle here worth playing. Maybe, maybe not. Well, we'd have to investigate the Sequence 1, and I'll do that later and just put it on the follow list now. The Last Call. We'll say no to that. I really wanted to get to the point where I saw the beginning of the end, but I think I'm not going to make it. Tale of Six looks like some kind of dice-based garbage game. I'm going to say no to that. May God Forgive Us. Seems like a dark screenshot horror game. I'll give it a chance, but it probably doesn't deserve it. Cyberpunk Fighting looks like nothing of interest. Arcade Galaxy, no. The Miner, no. Mix Reviewed. Clean Art, no. Russian Fishing 4, that doesn't look bad. We'll give that a follow. VR Table Tennis Ping Pong. Doesn't look great, but doesn't look terrible. We'll put that on the follow list and see. Check it out later. And then we have Shifting Dungeon, which I think we can say no to. Unfortunately, I think at this point, though, I'm not going to be able to go any further. We went 3 hours and 30 minutes, and so I am easing back to my regular schedule somewhat, but yeah, this chair is just killing me way too much. That's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.